Welcome to Zentangle Project Pack number 13, Day 1. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria, and in this project right here, we are going to put down a background with this great sketch and wash. And you can see I have a little container of water, and I've spilled it, and that's okay. I have my brush, and I'm going to show you how to draw with your brush. And one of them, you can see how I'm twirling my brush in my hand. And this is a technique I use in my past life. And what you are doing with the brush is you're creating a point on the brush all the time. So we're going to put down some sketch and wash on a scrap paper here.
So this series is all about transition. So I think this is really cool because there is a very major transition between your work with the brush and onto Zentangle,
right.
So from your previous design work.
So we're going to sort of make like a little watercolor here. It's going to be a little different than the other tiles that we're doing. And you can see I'm just mixing up a little bit of paint here. And whenever you go to grab some of this paint, you should twirl your brush so that you're always creating a point. And what we're going to do is we're going to put down some leaf shapes here and create a background pattern. It's going to be a tangle in itself done with a brush.
Right. So it's this repeating shape that's going to happen with the brush. And this is a real classic that you'll see it.
So these are the shapes that we're going to work with, and that's the shape that the brush makes.
It looks like Molly's Tangle that, when this is just like the Tangle that Molly does.
Which one?
Munchin.
Munchin.
Right? So you have these shapes that, if you go back and look at Munchin, I'm just thinking about this now, you have that, the elements that those lines make, they never touch and they look like these little fish or petals. So we're just putting this down, and part of this whole idea of transitions are like transitioning between layers, transitioning between materials, transitioning between tangles, and how they overlap and work together and move from one to the other.
So I wish you could see more how my brush is working, but I hold a brush different than I hold a pen, so it's usually more upright. But you can see here that each brush stroke is creating like a petal shape. And rather than making like a washy background, we're making like a tangled background with a subtle color. And so we're just going to, you don't have to worry about it being perfect. You can see that my things are just filling up the space to create a continuous pattern.
Right. And you've seen in the startup video, and if you haven't seen the startup video, please take a look at that. This is just another one of a whole bunch of different ways, and we're hoping that you will come up with ways of your own, and we'll get to learn from that too.
So this reminds me of William Morris patterns in the backgrounds of his work. So what you're going to end up seeing is something more like marbled paper. So you can see here we did some spirals and then then went over it with water. Can you see where I went over it with water after to create an after effect? These are the original lines that we put down, and then afterwards going in with the water.
And this paper is really great for this.
And this is sort of like a diva dancey kind of thing. And this is cross-hatching. Anything you do is going to be beautiful as long as it's consistent. So now I actually took a hairdryer to this so that we could go right away. And it happens really fast, so it dries really fast. I did a bunch of them.
So you can see just some of the ideas, and this is setting up more like a texture on a background, and then we're going to see how that transitions, and these are the transitions we're going to do.
Great.
These are some classic old tangles
Oh my gosh,
from right at the very beginning.
Quabog had to be one of the first
Yeah.
ones, and it's so simple, and yet it has such a presence
Yeah.
about it. So I'm kind of manipulating my tile so that it lays flat. You can see that it's not very malleable. You don't have to worry about this paper. It's so cool. So the string we're going to use is a simple orb.
And in classic Maria, it's slightly off center.
It's always off center. It's my look, right? So Quabog is just a series of shapes that look like that. That little, what is it, the Indian pipe or something like that?
I mean, to me, what this looks like or reminds me of, or is like a sea anemone. You know, those little extensions that go out and sense their world, and
they're all kind of moving around,
they're all moving
I
around.
like that. But these things not only grow out, but they grow behind each other. So you're going to see how you're going to use the hollabaugh technique here, back and forth. And they're just cute little things that kind of move around.
Right. So it's just a repetitive, whatever you do, you just do it over and over again, and it creates its own pattern.
And you can see the stems are just bordering that pencil orb that we did. And it has kind of a cool look to it. So we start our transitioning now.
So before you do that, I just want to mention that this is like a reverse string. So instead of drawing inside the string, you tangled outside it.
Drawing outside the string. So we're creating another series of these little Quabog things, but a little longer, and they're peeking out beyond. And these are going to become the sort of the stem for the poke root.
Right.
So in transitioning, we're using a Quabog for a stem. And you'll see that then it'll transition into the regular stem.
So there's that sense of, oh, well, this is that. What can I use this element of this pattern to be a link to the next pattern? And so using that whole principle of how poke root is done, and then with the hollabaugh, everything drawn behind.
So we'll do a whole circle of those. And now we're going to use our regular stem that we use with poke root. And I added a little something in there, just a little touch of detail so that you could see the difference. So there's the stem, and there's the little hat, and then there's going to be a little, like a shadow underneath the hat.
Just a little.
Just a detail.
A little bit of detail. I love that.
And these are going to poke out like poke root does. Yeah. So here's that little detail. It's just a little tiny thing.
And you'll notice that a lot of the times that these little, where the stems enter, it's in the center of the orb that you put around it. It's almost like it's falling away.
So when I was doing that first row of pokeberries like things, they kind of wavered in one direction, and now we're going to kind of go in another direction to get some movement in here. And they're kind of fun. It looks like it's moving around, wiggling underwater like that anemone.
And also it's like that's part of the transition. It's transitioning from one direction into another direction, and just taking inspiration from seeing where you are.
And you can see we're not nothing's real even, and it's more natural, and don't worry about the size or shape.
And you'll see the pattern, just that she's not paying attention to the background, but there's this wonderful interaction there.
So the next thing we're going to do is a series of the berries that are behind, like in a hollabaugh fashion. It's giving the look that these are way behind them. And these are just going to circle.
Oh, you know what it looks like? It looks like you put a vase on a glass table, and then you're looking up from the bottom.
Yeah.
right? You're seeing the bottom of the vase and how everything else is above it.
So we're putting it like a couple of rows of these partial berries.
Right.
So that's the fourth transition. 1, 2, 3. That's the fourth transition from one to another.
And rotating your tile, you'll see that she's rotating her tile quite a bit because she's making the same type of stroke with her hand in relatively the same position. And it's just more comfortable and it's more consistent. Even if it's a bit wonky, it's wonky in the same way throughout.
Right. So now we're going to work over towards, we're going to put in some more of these poke root shapes, but we're going to color them in. They're going to be a little bit smaller. They're going to set back a little.
And so I'm guessing you know where this is going. Well,
Yeah.
you saw it in the beginning. Is we're putting down. You know what's probably happening is little ladybugs have joined onto the poke root, and so right.
Yeah.
So they're setting
They're
us
getting
up.
comfortable
Yeah.
and setting us up for
Setting us up for
the
some
surprise.
aura,
Yeah. They're sleeping. They look like they're sleeping.
So just taking your time and enjoying filling those in. Don't forget, remember to breathe.
And you can see
Relax.
I left some space between those ladybugs.
Because,
I can see myself thinking there.
right. Well, I left a lot of those spaces in, particularly on a couple other tiles, because it's really neat to get a sense of how different people interact with the work that they're doing. That little pause to see, okay, how should I do the next stroke? And
Well,
just
this transitioning takes a little bit of thought.
right. And that thought is sort of like, well, just letting the tiles speak to you, and sometimes you just take a moment and then, I'm going to do this.
Kind of looking kind of
Yeah.
interesting, right?
Well, I like that it's added that extra bit of solid color. So it's a really nice contrast.
So we're going to put another row around. Now they're kind of joining together.
And if you're watching this and you aren't using the project pack, don't worry. You can, get any sort of materials and just follow along with whatever you have at home, whatever's available.
We're working on a gray tile. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning.
Right. Gray tile with a micron 01. And if you need another
Yeah,
ladybug,
I just sort of add them in wherever.
And it's even a pattern of patterns. So you see, Maria put those solid black spaces and shapes, and then 2 auras on each one, and then going back in between and adding additional solid shapes. So you create a rhythm. And that rhythm makes a resonance and makes a pattern. And the other part of it is that as you're doing that, you just say, okay, well, I'm going to do this, and then 2 of those, and then repeat that. And there's this pleasant, knowing of where you're going to go without knowing what it's supposed to look like. And always leaving that room to, I think I'm going to do something different.
It's kind of growing like a zinnia or something like
Yes,
that, right?
exactly.
You can see I'm adding love here and there whenever I see something that needs a little tidying up or attention, I guess. Don't hesitate to do that. It keeps you thinking, it keeps you moving, keeps your pen moving.
Right, it keeps you interacting with the tile.
So now you can see the auras that I'm doing are a little bit more spaced out
and she's doing a little bit of weighting. So she's skipping one and going to the next one, and
Yep.
a little bit of
This is
weighting.
important here. We're skipping.
Right, right. And these auras, you'll notice, are a little bit wider. So, as you saw in the beginning when we started this, this is inspired by Betweed, where they are. You can look that up. There's actually one of our first videos is up on
That's
drawing
right,
Betweed.
right?
Yeah.
Do you know why it's called Betweed? Do you remember?
Yes. Because it was a typo, right?
It was a typo on one of the
Newsletters
or something. And Rick, instead of putting between a rock and a hard place, he put between a rock and a hard place. And I said, wow, that's the name of the Tangle.
Right.
So we went with it.
And it also has a flavor of aeronaut. And you're going to see that it's one of the inspiring things about the concept of transitions is that so many tangles share characteristics with other tangles, and really makes a neat way to affect those transitions.
Because these lines were bigger and further apart, you can see I'm kind of going over them twice just to give them some oomph, right?
Right.
But you can go oomph free if you want.
Or change your pen, but
Yeah.
I think there's a charm in just keeping the same pen sometimes, even when you're filling an area in.
So you can see where they're starting to weave back and forth. That's the between that I thought was
Right.
there, but you can call it whatever you want. It's just a transition.
Turning your tile, relax your hand. And like so many things in Zentangle, these, one stroke at a time and anything is possible, this idea of transitions from one thing to another, and to look at something creatively and say, okay, this is what it is, where can I take it, how can I change this? It's a really nice metaphor, because it returns that creativity, that sense of, I can make a change here.
So if you're really into this, you can study up on Escher and see what kind of things he did to transition from a bird to a fish, or from this or that. And you change tiny details and work on...
negative space to positive space.
Negative to positive.
So I think it's sort of neat that we tangled outside the string when we began.
Outside the string, right. So it was actually maybe a border, not a string.
Could be. And just enjoying however you're doing those strokes, just keep doing it over and over again, and that repetition creates the pattern. And I love that little echo that's under it with those initial brush strokes with that graphite pencil.
Right. Again, it creates this subtle background of movement and almost like water, So I'm going in here and filling in the background of that first iteration of poke root, so that we have another transition piece there. You can see it's transitioning from a background into a positive space. That was an afterthought. So when you're working on these things, so you can see that it feels more like a transition.
So you've got some of those spaces that are dark, that are positive in the crescent moon, and then you've got those that are negative in the background of the poke root.
Right. That's pretty cool, right?
I think that's awesome.
And you can always go and tidy up, which I tend to do. And so with the graphite pencil, I'm just going to, it doesn't need a lot of shading. I'm just going to put a little bit of attention to the beginnings of the quabog. Maybe so that center portion will glow a little more.
Well, what it looks like to me, it reminds me of those Zen gems. You
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
got those little, the veining in the stone around there.
It's like a sun glowing in the middle, right? And I think just to give the poke root shapes some 3-dimension, I'm going to put that little smiley face in and give it some shadow.
So in this case, Maria's using the graphite pencil, not the Sketch and Wash. The Sketch and Wash is sort of water soluble. You can use it as a pencil, but it will activate with water.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it as detailed as this that I would use
Right.
it, that I would use
It's
it in
it's
this
a
kind
very
of place.
soft pencil.
Yeah.
But just look at how that makes such a difference, and how adding the shading around the, at the roots of the quabog, it just lifts up that center part, and it becomes like this beautiful gem.
So now the berries are looking round.
Mm-hmm.
With not a lot of, you go in with your tortillon, just soften it up and bring
Turn
them
it
to
this
life.
way and that.
Yeah, bring them to life. So behind that first set of crescent moons, I'm putting some graphite to bring those up front and center, away from the other ones, so that you can see more of the transition.
And this is where, when you go in with the tortillon, it really shows the impact of this, because all of a sudden it's that totally three-dimensional feeling. So once you have your tile with the ink, remember that you have so much ability to emphasize or de-emphasize, or take it in this direction or that with adding graphite and using the tortillon. Because look at that, it just lifts it right up. Nice. And so you'll see, like, she's pointing the tip of the tortillon to the edge that's most precise. Precise.
And with the white, General's white chocolate, white chocolate, what am I thinking of? The white chalk pencil?
Lunchtime.
Yes, and just giving that a little bit of a little highlight. And again, you put your highlight inside the dark. That's where it makes the most sense here. Believe it or not, if you really look at something like that, that's where the highlight is.
And you'll also notice that we're not working with a single light source. We're just looking at this shading and highlighting as part of the pattern.
So I'm going in and put my little chopperoonie there.
And this is an important part of all of the steps of the Zentangle method, beginning and ending with gratitude. But in that in-between part is to always, you're the artist. This is a work of art, and you sign it. And
so hold it out this way and that. Appreciate it, turn it around,
right.
And see it grow.
So quabog to poke root to crescent moon to betweed, and sign it. And sometimes you put notes on the back of anything that's of something to think of or remind yourself.
So these are some of the prototypes that I worked with when I was designing this. You can see the transitions. These were done on white tiles. You can see the difference there. And
yeah, so all those different ideas of transitions and how that informed it. So we look forward to seeing what you create in this whole series, and we're going to have some fun.
thank you very much.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye now.